So good morning, everyone. Just as we begin here, just so that you all know, we are recording today's webinar so it can be watched at a later date. On the right-hand side, under meeting handouts, you'll find the agenda as well as Wendy's slide. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending our webinar today. My name is Sonam Shah Paul, and I'm a Public Information Officer at the Bay Area Air Quality Management District and on the Southern Alameda County Spare the Air Resource Team. The Air District and the Southern Alameda County Spare the Air Resource Team want to thank you for your participation in our webinar this morning. In 1991, the Air District created resource teams as an effort to engage the public and bring together local agencies, environmental organizations, and businesses to implement projects that promote cleaner air. The Southern Alameda County Spare the Air Resource Team is one of 9 such resource teams today. Using alternative modes of transit and reducing solo driving commutes are important ways of reducing air pollution in the Bay Area. In the summertime, roughly 44% of ozone-forming pollutants come from on-road vehicles. One easy way to reduce this source of air pollution and smog and spare the air is by making positive commute choices. Over the next hour, you'll learn just how many types of shuttles there are and key considerations when planning a shuttle in your area. Again, we want to thank you for participating this morning. We hope you leave the webinar with some practical information on employer shuttles. And now I'd like to introduce Wendy Silvani. Wendy is a principal at Silvani Transportation Consulting and has over 18 years of experience in working with employer shuttles, including work on the Mission Bay Shuttle in San Francisco and the Emory Go-Round in Emeryville. Please welcome Wendy. Wendy?
Thank you. And good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We're going to give you a little overview on shuttles, what they're all about, why you might consider doing them, and how to go about setting a shuttle up. And so we hope you'll find this presentation helpful and spark some questions that we'll be happy to try to address at the end. So as we're getting started, excuse us for a moment, we're having a technical difficulty. There we go. Okay. It's important to recognize that shuttles come in many shapes and sizes. No two shuttles are quite alike. There's two general types of shuttles, one being the institutional shuttle, which we all know medical facilities such as Kaiser and other hospitals often have their own shuttle systems. Universities from the University of California, Cal State East Bay, Stanford University. We see a lot of community-based shuttles. This is senior centers, recreation department, the Boys and Girls Clubs, all kinds of community organizations run shuttles, large and small. And then, of course, we have our closed corporate systems shuttles, such as Google and Yahoo and the larger corporations who offer systems both large and small on a regional basis, as well as from local transit hubs to their headquarters and campus offices. On the other side, we've got general shuttles. General shuttles are those that serve a general area, such as an office park, a downtown district, or another similarly defined geographic area. General shuttles are usually open to many users, and they're also distinguished in terms of they're usually open to the public at large who is visiting an office park, downtown area, or whatever else the geographic boundaries are. And general shuttles are provided through a consortium. So that brings us to, why would a company consider providing a shuttle? Well, it's interesting. There are some really significant trends that are influencing commute patterns. According to the Bay Area Council, 57% of all workers in the 9 Bay Area counties cross at least one jurisdictional boundary to get to work. When you think about that, that's really, really significant. There's new mobility models emerging regarding auto usage versus ownership. So millennials, for instance, prioritize access over ownership. There are new studies out that also show millennials are more than happy to relocate for to have better transportation options, and the single occupancy vehicle is no longer necessarily the default preferred choice for many trips, both commute trips and personal trips. And as the infrastructure for HOV and transit improves, HOV or high occupancy vehicle or shared travel options are actually becoming faster, more reliable, and cheaper than driving alone. So those are all factors that are starting to influence the popularity of shuttles. If you're an employer, there's a growing expectancy that a shuttle is an employee benefit. It's an important recruitment tool. It allows you to draw from a larger pool. It allows you to retain the best employees. Oftentimes, a shuttle is part of the company's sustainability plan. It might be required by your conditions of approval for developing your project. Bottom line is it increases access for both your customers and employees, and it increases your productivity. Employees can work on the shuttle, they can check their email, get started on their day, follow up on things on their way home. Shuttles also reduce the need to build the maximum parking. One of the more important and brand new advantages of shuttles is they are one of 4 elements that bring you into compliance with the new Bay Area Commuter Benefits Program, which we'll talk about a little bit later this morning. It supports climate action plans for reducing VMT, greenhouse gas emissions, and other pollutants. Shuttles are easy to use, and that promotes patronage by employees and customers. Shuttles oftentimes fill service gaps in other transit. So where one line drops off, but there's still either a first or a last mile connection gap, that's what a shuttle usually fills. And in the local context, it offers the opportunity to link communities in new ways, again, with the emphasis on that first and last mile connection. The last reason is that customers, the end users, the employees, the shoppers, the visitors, customers love shuttles. It lowers their commute costs. It maximizes their options of where to work, where to live, what they can do, where they can play. It reduces their personal carbon footprint. It gives them another choice for different types of trips. Oftentimes, shuttles can save total travel time, they're convenient, they're safe, and the commute can really transition and become quality time. So, now you're thinking about maybe you do want to establish a shuttle. How do you go about it? Here are some of the key considerations that we'll talk about. Design, management, who will manage the shuttle? Who might your partners be? What do shuttles cost and how might they be financed? And last but not least, how are you going to evaluate whether the shuttle is doing what you'd like it to do or not? So we'll start with design. The most important aspect of shuttle design is really getting close to your customers and knowing who your customers are going to be. How many customers will you have? How often are they going to use the shuttle? What time of day do you need to provide service? Where and when do they want it? Which transit hubs? What other types of origins? What are the key connections? Oftentimes when you're designing a system, you can meet, for example, 3 out of 4 BART trains, but not all 4. So it's really important to know which connections your customers prioritize. In designing routes, travel times and the directness of routes is a really important consideration because people don't want to sit and go in circles when they're on a shuttle. The cost for customers and the ease of use, which ties in cost. Shuttles are usually free of charge, so boarding is quicker, it's easier, it's more intuitive for people just to hop on and get to work. after you kind of have an idea of how many people are going to be using it and at what times of day and what the utilization might be, you start looking at what size vehicles are most appropriate. You look at your accessibility issues. Do you want a lift or do you want a ramp? Do you want, if you're going to be deploying the ADA amenities on a real frequent basis, you probably want a vehicle with a ramp. It's going to be quicker, it's easier for the driver, it's easier for the wheelchair customer to board and deboard the bus quickly. You want to also consider streets and routes and the geographical terrain. You want to consider whether you're stopping on the street or whether you're giving people door-to-door service. If you're giving people door-to-door service, or if you're pulling into, say, a hotel or other protected places, you need to keep in mind the height of buses often is too high to get under a lobby overhang, for example. You want to look at the hours of operation, how many vehicles are going to be needed, and how many vehicles are needed is a conversation that comes out of the kind of frequency and or coordination with specific connections. So it's one thing if you want to have frequency every 10 to 15 minutes. It's another in terms of vehicle requirements if you're coordinating, say, with incoming Caltrains. Who are the logical partners to join you in providing the service, if any? And is it cost effective for all of the partners as well as for customers? The next thing to consider is which business model is going to be most appropriate for you. Are you going to participate in a TMA or another type of consortium? Are you going to provide an individual closed-in service and contract directly with a vendor? So that would mean that it's just for your employees and you're not sharing the service with anyone. Are you going to work with a provider who aggregates service by selling routes and seats on a subscription basis based on demand? And oftentimes they either go directly to your employees or they work through you brokering their services, but people pay on a per seat basis, not necessarily making a commitment to a whole service. And the aggregator then sells the rest of the seats and the rest of the route to other people. Other people start on a very small basis. If they're not sure or if the demand is very small, often a van pool is a really good way to get started, and then that can grow into a shuttle as the program evolves. So next we come to collaboration and funding options and formulas if you're not doing a closed system. Obviously, if you're doing a closed system, you're not necessarily collaborating with anyone else. So normally, the formulas for figuring out who's going to pay what in a shared system is type of use, square footage, number of employees, and oftentimes the partners will form a new entity or a TMA, or you can also look at whether you can operating through an existing organization. Chambers of commerce, business improvement districts, other quasi-public entities often can provide that umbrella service. So the group effort or consortium work really well for lots of reasons. One is that it makes it very cost efficient for all of the participants because costs are spread amongst many partners. Usually you see a lot greater utilization of vehicles per run, so your efficiency is way higher than running just your own system. You get the advantage of having more total service hours, you have better frequencies, and all those kinds of attributes tend to lead to more successful programs. Collectively, then also you're achieving greater reductions in VMT, greenhouse gas savings, and other air quality benefits. One of the most important things is that transportation is usually not a core competency for most businesses, yet this is a very, very important element of your employee recruitment and retention program. And it also transfers liability to a professional vendor and through the umbrella of a TMA or the other organizing entity, it provides even further arm's length distance for risk exposure. So who operates and manages shuttles if it's not your own company? TMAs, Transportation Management Associations, or other entities. They're consortiums of pooled resources. That TMA or entity actually hires the vendor to provide the turnkey service, and as I said before, it provides the arm's length contracts. Sometimes vendors will provide all the service that you need. Some vendors will provide all the shuttle management, handle the billing to different partners depending on how it's set up, and this is particularly true in the case of vendors who are aggregating service. There's public-private partners. The alliance model in San Mateo County is a really good example of this one, where the alliance manages several shuttles on behalf of the various cities in San Mateo County, and it kind of pools together some public resource money with employer contributions to provide those services. Public transit and cities are also in the shuttle business in some cases. Contra Costa County is a good example. Their downtown Walnut Creek to BART service, Bishop Ranch, Rossmore, which is run by Contra Costa County Transit, and then Union City is an example of a city that actually provides transit and shuttle service. How are shuttles funded? Well, we start with the most simple model, which is each company funding its own service. Then we have pooled resources through TMAs, which are also privately funded, and the costs are always determined by those who are contributing to the shuttle. As we said before, the basis can be the type of use, the square footage, a number of units, number of employees, or other variables that help distinguish one type of use from another. Public partnerships, which provide for a combination of private and public funding. Oftentimes there have to be certain requirements met, reductions in SOV trips, greenhouse gas emission savings, and these criteria are always subject to change. They're also contingent on the availability of funding every year. When you're doing a shuttle, whether it's a private shuttle or part of a TMA, you don't operate in a vacuum. And cities and other transit agencies are very valuable partners and need to be at the table along with you. Cities can often kind of be the foundation for helping you set up collaborative efforts. They can have development policies where alternative mode share targets are set for developments or office parks or specific companies. Sometimes the city will require a shuttle along with other TDM measures, shared parking, other things in development agreements. And when they're reviewing a corporate project for either expansion or new development, incorporating safe and convenient access for shuttles in the design review process is an important role that the city plays. The city can also really help facilitate formation of new collectives. They have access to Caltrans and other planning grants. They can orchestrate multiple developments working together to explore options, because their planning and redevelopment teams know who's trying to do what, and they can start putting a lot of different private people together to work together. You also need to work really closely with your city and transit agency on an ongoing basis for operational support. You need permission for shuttles to use existing bus stops. San Francisco, for instance, is in the process of establishing a shuttle regulation program where shuttles using muni stops are going to start paying a fee per stop event. Some alternatives are establishing white zones that are just for shuttles, or asking cities to establish an exclusive shuttle zone. But you need to work with cities and your transit agencies to provide for safe stops, shelters, and other amenities in the public realm. Working with the cities and transit agencies also offers a real opportunity for placemaking around transit hubs and shuttle stops. Oftentimes, the city or the transit agency can help providing layover and storage for shuttles, or they can provide fueling agreements for shuttles. In San Francisco, we turned to the MTA to get permission to use some of the bus HOV lanes, make turn exceptions that are normally only available to Muni. In Emeryville, we worked with the city to get traffic signal priority equipment on our buses and to help us, with the red lights, and other technology that only the city can give you permission to use that really helps reliability, speed, and efficiency when the city is putting those kinds of improvements in, or the transit agency. And then, of course, last but not least, how are you going to measure and monitor how well your shuttle is doing? Annual surveys and results regarding your TDM targets and progress, regarding the emissions that you're reducing and other metrics. Ridership, or is your ridership growing? Is it falling? Is it stagnant? What are the cost and operating efficiencies of shuttle? What's the cost per mile? What's the cost per passenger? How does it compare with the cost and operating efficiencies of parking and other facilities? Oftentimes the cost of a shuttle is more than offset by the savings in need to build and maintain parking facilities. And how are you measuring your progress towards community priorities, activities, and investments, and how does the shuttle contribute to those goals? So in summary, in nearly 20 years of designing and running shuttles, I have to say that I've never found two shuttles or two communities that are alike. Every single one is different. So there's no cookie cutter approach. There are some common themes, such as starting with being really close to your customers and designing systems that your customers tell you they want. And beyond that, making sure once you start that you stay customer focused and therefore very flexible, because needs do change. Shuttles have a lot of positive contributions to make. They add value to commercial and residential properties. They increase access and mobility. They alleviate parking and traffic congestion. They foster public perceptions about an area being accessible. They encourage local collaboration. They improve the quality of life for workers and residents, and they help reduce VMT and achieve other climate action plan goals. And that pretty much concludes my presentation. Thank you, and I'm available. My contact information is here if anybody would like to follow up with questions after today's webinar.
So thank you, Wendy, for your presentation. Before we open up the forum for questions and answers, we'd like to share two short videos with you. For more information on Vanpool, we share a short video from Connie McGee at Enterprise Rideshare, and for more on shared use models, we have a short video from David Chu at RidePal.
Hi, I'm Connie McGee, and I'm with Enterprise Rideshare. I've been working in this industry for over 15 years, and in that time, I've seen a lot of changes in how companies are providing alternative commute options to their employees. For example, companies are using van pools, and they're using it for a variety of different ways. They're using it as a traditional van pool. They're using it to scale up a shuttle, and as the small shuttle itself. For example, in companies like Google and Facebook, where they have critical mass and multiple van pools potentially coming from one area, they may trade out those several van pools and turn them into one shuttle. As another alternative for companies that maybe have less employees that are coming from a rail station or between campuses, they may choose to use a van as an alternative to a larger shuttle instead of getting the larger shuttle. And in those cases, there's definitely an advantage from a cost perspective because you're not needing to pay for the larger vehicle when you're really only utilizing it for a few employees. So as you can see, there's a variety of different ways that you can actually utilize vans in starting up a shuttle program.
Hi, I'm David. I work at a company called RidePal. Here talking about shared use models. So for many companies,
hi, I'm David. I work at a company called RidePal.
What you can do is get together with a number of other companies in your area and pool together your resources, your energies,
Here talking about shared use models.
Shuttle service. This will allow all those companies to get the full benefits of the shuttle without.
So for many companies, small and medium sized, the best thing that you
this is a great way for a lot of you to service a lot of the needs of your employees, and it's a
can do is get together with a number of other companies in your area.
Vehicles coming to your offices. You guys can get started by just going out, meeting the other people at other companies.
Pool together your resources, your energies, your efforts to put together a shared use shuttle service. This will allow all those companies to get the full benefits of the shuttle.
Great. As we open up for questions and answers, we just want to circle back on the question of what is the Bay Area Commuter Benefits Program? Wendy mentioned it earlier. The Bay Area Commuter Benefits Program requires all employers with 50 or more full-time employees in the Bay Area to provide commuter benefits to their employees. To comply with the program, employers must select one of 4 commuter benefit options, notify their employees about how to take advantage of the benefit, and register with the program by September 30th, 2014. There is more information available on 511's website on the Commuter Benefits Program. And the Commuter Benefits Program is really aimed to promote the use of alternative commute modes such as transit, ride-sharing, biking, and walking and shuttles, reducing motor vehicle travel, reducing emissions of greenhouse gases and other pollutants, improving air quality and protecting public health, reducing traffic congestion, and really saving money for employers and employees by expanding the use of the commuter tax benefit provisions in the federal tax code. And we do have more information available on the commuter benefits page at 511.org. So now we'd like to open it up for some questions and answers. The very first question we have here is, besides neighboring companies, who else can I talk to who might want to share a shuttle?
Well, one of the great things about shuttles is the ability to get creative. So one of the growing areas that I see is residential sharing. It works for shuttles for a few reasons. The first is that you're usually bringing employees into an area from a transit hub, but especially in more and more transit-oriented developments and more dense urban situations, you have residents living in close proximity to where the employees are getting off the bus. And so it's a very logical and efficient thing to do to pick up residents going back to those BART stations, Caltrain, and other transit hubs. And that helps really make your shuttle a lot more efficient in both directions, so you're not deadheading or running empty on the return trip. So sharing it with residential uses is something that's usually non-competitive, and it just makes a lot of sense. And it does not affect your capacity. It makes for a lot more efficiencies. One of the other ways you can help defray those costs is if you only need a shuttle that's operating during the commute times, it could be that you could share your vehicle with another organization during the daytime or on the weekends or for late night service, looking around to see who your neighbors are and what their needs may be for those off-peak hour uses.
Great. The next question is, in partnerships with cities, how can we account for EVs, which improve air quality but hurt trip reductions / SOV targets, and SOV is single occupancy vehicle targets?
I think that's more a question for you. I think as we talk about evaluation, we need to kind of evolve, and talking about cost per passenger and emissions certainly give EVs, the credence that we need. And of course, if EVs are also shared occupancy vehicles, not single occupancy vehicles, that makes a difference. So I would like to actually see new language evolve around shared transport, so that it's not necessarily, public transit versus shuttles versus ride sharing. Any shared form of transport is shared transport versus single occupancy vehicles. And then non-motorized would be another category for, biking and pedestrian. But again, I don't know where the Air District is and where the MTC is on EVs.
The next question is, can Wendy give a range of costs of providing shuttle service, and what factors influence the costs?
Sure. In general, and I'm assuming that you're going to pay for a vendor who is providing a driver. These are very, very general costs, but basically the cost between offering a van with a professional driver and a typical 26 to 30 seat shuttle bus with a driver might be a range of, $50 to $55 an hour to, maybe $80, $85 an hour. And if you're talking about an over-the-road highway coach bus, then of course your costs are, $100 plus an hour. If you're just talking about, and maybe Connie can jump in as well, but if you're talking about a van, but you're providing your own driver, and you have to be careful because at a certain point you need a licensed commercial driver, but that begins to lower those costs.
The next question is, when public funds are used for shuttle service, do the shuttles have to be open to the general public?
Yes.
Okay. Next question. How many people is the minimum to start a shuttle?
Well, again, it depends. If, as Connie mentioned in her presentation, oftentimes companies who aren't sure of the demand or the need can start with a van. You can start with a 9, a 12, a 15, or an 18 passenger van, and then grow it to a regular shuttle bus as your program starts to grow. So,
and Connie mentions as long as the van is less than 15 passengers, they do not need a special license.
Right, right. So I always like to see shuttles running around with good utilization, and it's one of those aggravating parts of life when I drive around and I see an empty bus running around. So when you're planning and designing a system where you look at the number of runs, you look at, how people are coming in over the course of the morning and evening commute, And you expect, of course, to ramp up and then ramp down, at the beginning and end of those time frames. But you want to be pretty close to capacity, right in the heart of those. And that generally says that you've got a good system going.
What are the key points I should consider? What are the key points I should use to discuss launching a shuttle with management at my company?
Well, the first is probably that this is shuttles and helping people get to work and get home are part of a bigger program of employee recruitment and retention. So in certain industries, for example, it's kind of just expected that this is part of the benefits program. It's a huge concern. Transportation is right up there in either as the top 1 or 2 or 3 concerns of employees and of Bay Area residents in general. So helping them get to work and then between work. So if a company has several campuses, for example, or if employees have to travel a lot, that also helps, design what the transportation system is. And it goes beyond shuttles at some point. That's where you start to talk about car sharing and, corporate cars and ride sharing and other modes.
The next question is, you mentioned evaluation. Can you restate a couple of the performance measures and what would qualify as good performance in those measures?
Okay, certainly being able to say you have a growing or stable ridership, that your utilization of vehicles is close to capacity, as I mentioned before. So let's say you have a 15-passenger van. If you've got an average of, 12 passengers, I would say you have a really, really good program. If you have to expand because there's so much demand, and like my system in Mission Bay right now, we're standing room only on 5 or 6 runs between 8 and 9, we have to add to service. So those are all good indicators of how you're doing. Your cost per passenger, but again, you have to take a cost per passenger into account of how far they're traveling, what their total commute cost might be without the shuttle. So when I talk to customers who are moving into, say, new businesses coming into Mission Bay, I help them figure out, if they were driving, what it would cost them. The cost of gas, the time, the bridge tolls, the parking, and I'm usually able to show them that taking BART or Caltrain and the Mission Bay shuttle actually reduces their costs and increases the travel reliability, because although BART certainly had its share of issues during the strike and immediately before and afterwards, it doesn't get hung up nearly as much, for accidents and other reasons as somebody driving alone does.
This is sort of in that same vein, this next question. How can shuttles prioritize which transit hubs they serve? So you mentioned earlier that sometimes you have to think of hitting 3 BART lines instead of 4.
Right. Well, again, I go back to my very foundational, where I always start, is talking to the customers. And so if there's a choice of, BART station A, B, or C, I will usually go talk to my customers and say, which BART station would you like us to serve? And whoever gets the most votes is the station we start serving. And sometimes it's intuitive and sometimes it's not. For instance, in San Francisco, we just had a company just outside of Mission Bay sign on to our service as a participant, because they had a service that was taking people to Embarcadero Station, and they were finding that their employees were going to Embarcadero and then getting off and getting on a BART train going down to Powell so they could get a seat. So because our service goes to the Powell station, they were really interested in why don't they just, their employees walk an extra block to get to our system, but then we take them directly to Powell, so they end up saving time anyway. And other considerations about selecting those kinds of hubs is it may make a difference that you're in one fare zone or another. So where that pricing is in terms of if you're going to this station, it costs the customer, X dollars, and if you go to that station, they're going to pay Y because the light rail fare or the bus fare is different.
Who should I get in contact with to help define my shuttle program? How do I get in touch with someone?
Well, I would say that a great place to start is with 511.org because regardless of where you are in the Bay Area, they can certainly refer you to the appropriate people in your county and your city. I would say yourself there at the Bay Area Air Quality Managed District, the Spare the Air organization. So there's lots of public resources, and of course, those of us who have participated today.
We have one more question. I am the Access Coordinator for Transit and Shuttles at BART. Please mention that people wishing to run a shuttle to BART should coordinate with BART. It's different in San Francisco, where we
don't.
Unfortunately, the comment there
We
cut
can't
off,
see the
but
whole comment. But okay, where we
here
don't.
we go.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it's different in San Francisco, where we don't have jurisdiction over the curbs. So I think that this comment really harkens back to coordinating with the cities and the transit agencies in the area that you are hoping to launch a shuttle. It's really crucial to get that buy-in and support.
Absolutely, and also BART does have a whole access department that is really, really nice to work with, and trying to make all the stations as friendly to all users, because again, it's not we versus they, it's us together collectively providing people with options to share transportation.
And on that note, we want to reiterate that we have a resources card here up that lists out people who you can contact for more information. And there's more information also on the Southern Alameda County Spare the Air resource team available. The meeting handouts are available, including Wendy's slides with contact information. And so on that note, and in closing, on behalf of the Southern Alameda County Spare the Air resource team, we want to thank you for participating in today's webinar and taking time to think about shuttles. Please feel free to reach out to any of us after today's webinar with any questions that you might have. Again, our contact information is available on the resources page. And remember that utilizing alternative modes of transit like shuttles and van pools and walking and biking are means of reducing air pollution in the Bay Area, and we thank you for doing your part to spare the air.
Thank you.